So this is Introduction to Behavioral Economics. And um, we will look at first how behavioral economics is different from traditional. So managerial decision making is your textbook that presents the basics of behavioral economics research. And there's a lot more cutting edge that's going on. And I hope you will explore the more cutting edge findings in your final project for this course. Okay, so that's what economics is. And one of the definitions of economics is the science of explaining tomorrow why the predictions you made yesterday didn't come true today. That's not the real definition of economics, okay? So economics is a science of, okay, so first we'll look at the decisions. Okay, so economics is a science of how people make choices. What kind of choices? So what kind of decisions? This could be regarding what kind of car I buy, how do I select postgraduate job, how much money do I want to save or to spend, who do I want to hire for the company where I'm a manager, whether our firm should invest into new products or not. So all these kind of choices are made by us. And economists think that we make them selfishly. So in classical economics, a human being is that guy that's in the picture here. It's a rational human being. It's selfish, so kind of like a robot. Should put a picture of a robot here. Silly man. Okay, so we make them selfishly without emotion. We don't care about other people while making our choices because we want to improve our own, what we call utility or satisfaction. So we choose the most preferred option out of all the available options. So we're looking for an optimal solution. We're optimizing every step of our lives. We're optimizing, like surveying in our mind all the options available and choosing the best one. We also compare costs and benefits of all options out there in the entire universe of the alternatives that we are aware of. We are aware, right? So we compare costs and benefits constantly. We kind of do, right? We go to the store, we look at the box of cereal and say, oh, $2.99 for cornflakes. Am I willing to pay that much? And you kind of already know in the back of your mind the answer, right? So if your child wants it no matter what, and your child is going to bite you if you don't buy the box of cereal, then $2.99 is something you're willing to pay, right? Or for some other reasons, you really like that particular, what is it, toast, cinnamon toast crunch. But maybe you don't like it, and maybe you're not willing to pay that much for a box of sugar and carbs, right? So it depends on you. And we do make all these choices constantly in our heads. Other things that Homo economicus does, it has well understood and stable preferences not influenced by others. Like kind of slightly different from being selfish, right? I guess he knows what he likes more, what he likes less, and others, whatever others are buying does not matter. Or watching other people watching Netflix, so he's more likely to watch Netflix. No, he's not, according to rational economics, more likely to watch Netflix because of the recommendations of others, only relying on his own or her own preferences. But so oftentimes in economics, we assume, in classical economics, we assume that people have a lot of information, so perfect information that we know all the movies in the world and we can select whatever's best for us, but we don't know the movies in the world, right? So we do use recommendations from Netflix and from our friends and family. But that's only one example of how we are influenced by others. So a rational economic human knows the results of all potential choices. So where are they going to lead them? So know, like if you ended up at SUNY ESC, but you were choosing between several different schools, then you know exactly like what would have been the results for other schools too if you were to complete a degree at a different school versus coming here, which we don't even know what's going to be, what's going to happen when you complete a degree here, right? So we only have in real life, we only have expected benefits. We don't have the exact outcomes, the way they will transpire at some point in time. Okay, so a rational human does not have any regrets and does not change his or her mind. So once the choice is made, we stick with it. Is that true? Do we really always stick with the choices we made yesterday? I actually wanted to go to the gym this morning. Yes, that day I wanted to go to the gym this morning. And this morning I resulted that I realized that I have an urgent meeting. And then what other excuse did I have for myself? I already forgot. But actually, I didn't end up going to the gym. Right? So I do have regrets too. And I did change my mind, even though I'm a rational economist. See how tricky life is. So rational human also updates his beliefs given new information. So, and I should have updated my beliefs knowing that, so tomorrow I am going to find an excuse not to go to the gym. So I should have made a commitment, a firm commitment yesterday. And so I didn't update my beliefs. That sometimes I deviate and don't always hold on to my initial ideas. So anyway, all these are great assumptions. They're awesome assumptions for studying classical economics. And classical economics is the best subject in the world that explains human behavior, because I have a PhD in it. So I'll advertise, keep studying economics, but also be aware of everything that we talk about in this behavioral class, where you will be repeatedly told, no, we're not as rational as we think we are. So your textbook outlines 6 steps to rational decisions, as defining the problem, identifying the criteria, weighing the criteria, generating alternatives, rating each alternative on each criteria, compute the optimal decision. It already sounds complicated, right? So even though the simple problem might be, should I feed the cat or not? Right? So it is the assumption of rationality that we all behave like that. So behavioral economics, what is it about? It studies the effects of psychological, social, cognitive, and emotional factors on the economic decisions of individuals and institutions. So behavioral economic maintains that we do fail to think clearly. We don't always think clearly. We make cognitive errors. So systematic deviations from logic, from optimal, rational, reasonable thoughts and behaviors. So we do deviate. We can be tricked, and we trick ourselves, and we trick other people, and we're mired. We're full of cognitive biases, as you are about to learn. So we make systematic errors in judgment, not just occasional errors in judgment when we didn't sleep well last night, but systematic errors. We make routine mistakes. We stumble over certain barriers again and again. we are in a rut to make repeated mistakes, and we should be aware of that. And the humans have been like that for generations. So one of the topics we will cover in this course is how evolutionary biology leads us to certain biases. Okay, so one example, it's much more common that we overestimate our knowledge than we underestimate it. So that's a very mild and kind of a benign bias. So it's kind of good to overestimate your knowledge and be a little bit overconfident in your own behavior. It gives you kind of more strength to move forward. Right? So some biases are less benign than this. This is an example of a cognitive bias of sheep, right? It looks like supposedly on this picture, there's no fans, but they still need to go through the gates. And maybe we're sheeple, and also make biases. All right, so classical economics is lost in this situation where we have an increased number of choices. So can you be worse off if the number of options for you to choose from increased? In the a rational model, you will not you will not be affected by just how many shirts you have to choose from. If you like the white one the most, you'll wear it, right? Or whether there is a blue one or red one, green one out there, doesn't adding the green one does not make you like the white one less. So in this example, the Medicare drug prescription plan offers over 1,000 additional insurance choices. Most beneficiaries want fewer options because I guess it's hard. It's a huge cognitive load to evaluate all the choices. So what's biologically the role of our brain is that we have the prefrontal cortex that takes a lot of energy. We had to feed it a lot. So a lot of effort and energy goes into evaluating choices. And what our brain does for us, it optimizes things for us. So if you have done several choices in the past, then the next time you come across a similar problem, your brain makes the choice for you because it's going through the same you're going through the same routine, and the brain minimizes your cognitive load. All right. So it's helping you out. It's helping you out to survive, because if you like back in the wilderness when for 100,000 years, right, million probably years, or maybe more than 1 million years, when humans evolved and lived in the wilderness, like while you're making the choice, should I be running away from that leopard or from that other danger, then that you would not survive, right? If you were to be thinking too much. So yes, your brain is helping you out, and it creates all the rules of thumbs, all that we call heuristics in this class. So the question is, how many options do you want on a restaurant menu? Do you want to be overwhelmed with like 50 pages of items in the restaurant menu? No, it's easier to make a choice when you have only 5 options or so. Yeah, how hard do you want to work to order a meal? Not too hard. And the simple, the better. So another problem where classical economics would be at a loss, learning about preferences. The rational choice model assumes that you already know completely all your preferences and there's nothing to learn. So you already know what you want. You know. So, but when you try a new food or a new drink, learning about your that's what's taking place. You're learning about your preferences, right? So here next to me, I have seeds. You may not see it really well, but I have two seeds of a plant. I bet you don't know what this plant is. How about that? A challenge. What do you think the seeds are from? So they are dark in the bottom and pretty hard, and they are light and soft on top. Can you see? I learned about this plant just this week. The tropical plant. Okay, if you don't have ideas, then I'll tell you. Give you a clue. It doesn't, I don't think it grows in the United States. Okay, it's ackee, and it grows in the Caribbean, and they make an interesting dish from it. Ackee and saltfish. And I would have never tried it. I would have never known. I would have never known whether I like it or not. But it turns out I don't like the saltfish part of it. I like the ackee part, but not the saltfish. So yes, and I wouldn't have known whether I like it or not if I hadn't tried it. But traditional economics tells you that you already know your preferences. So new products in the market are kind of hard to explain with traditional economics, but behavioral does have an explanation. So another problem, self-control. Rational choice model assumes that your preferences are known to you, and they don't alter over time. And the decision you make today about the future behavior would be a decision that you would just stick to. And then like look at real humans who make New Year resolutions, and then the gym memberships increases in January, right? But now what happens in February, right? So they will quit going to the gym sometimes. Some people, not all. I'm sure you're not like that. So, how do we make decisions? So, whether it is predictable in any way, our departure from rationality. And it turns out it is, and that's the subject of behavioral economics. We're learning about like systematic ways in which our departures from rationality can be predicted. So it is important to learn that for policymaking, from policymaking perspective too, for economists, for people in the government. So this way we can nudge people to behave certain ways, right? So you should be able to nudge people to behave better, healthier, in ways that you want them to behave in some way. I'm just joking, but to nudge people to behave in a better way by learning behavioral economics. So on this slide, you see a book, Predictably Irrational, by Dan Ariely. We will be going over a lot of his research, and this is not the only book he published. He is a well-known behavioral economist, and you might want to look him up and see. There might be excerpts of some of his books online, see if you like them. So what methods does behavioral economics use? It uses experiments a lot. So experiments, putting people in front of the computer, asking them to play a game and see what kind of choices people make. Or putting them in front of the computer, asking them a set of questions and see what they prefer or what kind of coalitions they build, right? Depending on the games and the questions. So advantages of that approach is that people, we can easily collect data. We can see whether people's choices are consistent with standard theories or with some of the alternative explanations. Researchers can go back to the results of the experiments and see, double check their assumptions, their results. They can run a different other experiment, invite more people. They can easily invite students to participate in this kind of experiments on a large university campus. You can pay students, $10 and they will participate in a half-an-hour experiment, right? However, there are disadvantages as well, right? So thinking about how different people choices might be in the computer lab versus real world. Could be, right? So yes, always pay attention. Like where exactly a certain conclusion in economics or in behavioral economics comes from. Like, how did the researchers arrive at it? Like, is there evidence beyond simple experiments? Yep. So, this could be an example of an experiment. So risk aversion. So you can choose. So you can actually try to see how risk averse you personally are. Or suppose you have a choice between, well, option A, you get $10 million for sure. How about we don't play on millions? So you're gonna be like, I'm okay with any option, right? If I have $1 million. $10 for sure. Or you flip a coin and get $20 for heads or 0 for tails. So what feels like something that feels better for you? What feels better for you? $10 for sure, or the flip of a coin and $20 if heads or 0 if tails. So if you prefer the first option, $10 for sure, you're a risk averse person. You're avoiding risk. Like most of us in many situations, we avoid risk. Although there's some evidence, again, this is so cool to research. Maybe some of you will look into the difference between men and women, and are there actually solid evidence for this, or evidence? Is there solid evidence that men are more risk averse, for example, than women? There's some of that evidence that women tend to be more risk averse and men more risk loving, especially with small amount of money, but it may or may not, like, things are changing all the time, right? Maybe in the past that was true. Maybe it's no longer true right now. Or maybe it's only true in certain settings, like say men are more likely to start a business, whereas women are more likely to prefer some, passive income stream. So maybe they are less likely to start a risky business, but more kind of like a small profit or modest profit kind of business, but profit for sure. So yes, many interesting questions are out there to explore, and you can always consult with me and ask me whether the question is interesting or not. All right, so a second experiment. Choose your preferred option. Whether you want to get $10. Oh, don't look at that million. So just $10 for sure. Or you would prefer coin flip. And if it lands heads, you will get $25. Or you will get 0 if it lands tails. So in the second case, notice the expected value of the choice is more than $10. So in the first example, we had that option B, the expected value of that choice was $10. Here it's more than $10. So you might actually like to play this lottery. So if you still don't want to play this lottery, then you really risk averse. And yeah, so the expected value is positive. You may want, if you're just only mildly risk averse, then you may want to agree to that lot. Okay. So this other experiment that I'm sure you'll read about it in your textbook, where, well, we probably won't be able to play it among us. It kind of works better in a large group, That's why experimental evidence is conducted on groups of students, like there are 100 or 100. So there is some evidence that you are, or that we are biased by random numbers, but the way the question is framed. Say, I will ask you right now to write the last two digits of your phone number. Okay, so mine is 34, right? So I would write down 34, and somebody would write down 05, for example. Somebody else will write down 98 or 86, kind of a larger number. Whereas I'm writing down a modest number. Somebody else will write a very small number. And then a researcher asks a question. So how many countries are there in the world? So some question, other question that's totally unrelated to your phone number. And those people who just saw a large number written down, they will give you a larger number of countries than people who wrote down a smaller number. So interesting, right? So our answer now is kind of being influenced. We're anchoring our answer. Anchoring is another behavioral economics term. We're using it as an anchor, but this is really a random number we're using as an anchor. So our brain is looking for anchors in the world. So we come to a store and something like eggs. Okay, eggs. It used to be 79 cents a carton. Okay, just last year. Okay, a year and a half ago. And I'm still anchored to that price. I can't stand seeing it at $3.99 a carton, right? So I'm just thinking it is ridiculously expensive just because my mind is anchored to the old price of under 99 cents a carton, right? But somebody else who just came from a different country, they're looking at $3.99. Oh, that's the normal price around here. That's fine. So yes, anchoring. Okay. So some experiments that you will see in your readings, and this one is from, I think it's described in several books, including in Dan Ariely's book on Predictably Irrational. So there was a problem that was studied by economists. So the problem is the following. Parents were picking up their children late from school. So the school ended at 5 p.m., but parents wouldn't show up until like 5:30. And it was a problem for the school, for the daycare, where the school had to be a babysitter and they could not hand off their babies to the parents before 5:30. 5:30, it was expensive. They had to pay somebody to take care of the kids while the parents showing up. So they started charging people, charging parents like hourly rates. Right, if you're late by an hour, right, so you're paying an hourly rate. So if you're late 30 minutes, you're paying for the 30 minutes. So it turns out it actually did not reduce their parental late pickup. So it did the opposite. So parents started leaving their children more often in daycare after 5 p.m. because now that's okay, right? Okay, they feel like they have paid for the services. In this experiment, so a carefully designed experiment has to have a treatment group and a control group. So it what we have is that there was a period of time until week 4 when the treatment is assigning the monetary value to the time, to the lateness, right? To being late. And then it was removed after week 17. So in each case, the behavior was compared, right? So these is an experimental design, which we should all also pay attention to. So what do we see in this graph? Exactly that, right? Around week 4, we have the control group. So the control group is the group in which payments were not. So the same next door group of parents and children for whom the payments did not exist. So, and that would be the share of, so on your vertical axis is the share of parents who show up late. So it was around 30%, right? Before, like 20-30% for both groups. And then it stayed low for the orange control group where there was no change. And then it increased, you see, for the treatment group, parents for whom payments were introduced. So, and you could see your results on the graph. And then, of course, you can use some statistical analysis, which we will not be doing here, but we will be reading about scientific research in this class. So, Malcolm Gladwell. So we will be reading bits and pieces of his book for our homework. He explored the topic of intuition versus thinking without prefrontal cortex. So system 1 and system 2. System 1 is quick, intuitive thinking that kind of snap judgments, all the things that our brain is already at ease with. So how to brush our teeth, we don't even notice that, right? How to take a drink and sip from it while you're talking, that's so easy to do, right? We're not thinking about it. But it would be a much larger cognitive load to figure out how to install an app on this computer, and it'll take a long time, and how to then sign in and all those things, right? So it'll take time. System 2, or cognitive load, right, increases. So yeah, there is a lot of power to including our intuition into our judgment, and Malcolm Gladwell explains that, or gives us good examples in his book. So system 1 and system 2 is also explained in the first chapter of your textbook. It is intuitive versus the low unconscious. It's effortless versus effortful. And those were economist Kahneman, Kahneman himself, who wrote the book on Thinking Fast and Slow, and he is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, even though he is technically a psychologist. So that was a Nobel Prize for behavioral economics for one of those years. All right, so now we're getting into our biased thinking. Our brain wants to tell us that one of the tables is longer than the other. And if you measure the tables, you see that they're the same. But then, of course, there's power of perspective, right? So we may be right, maybe the tables is longer than the other. One of the biases is called a bounded awareness or inattentional blindness, when it's our general tendency not to notice what you're looking for, even when you're looking directly at it. Let's see if we want to watch this video. It's quick, 3 minutes. If I will be able, that's the monkey business. So anyway, try to, oh no, now we will have a problem with ads and with sound. I'm afraid, maybe not. So the famous video, well, you can watch it on your own in your spare time. We won't spend much time on it now, but I'll tell you what it is. It's when you can still see the slides, right? I hope you can. Let me know if you can't. So the famous video in which students are asked to count how many times the white team passes the ball to the black team, or the black team passes the ball to the white team. So the two teams are playing basketball. And then at the end of the this short video, some people say, oh, like 18 times or 14 times or 7 times. So somebody counted more, somebody less. But then the researcher asked them a question, but did you see the big gorilla passing through the basketball field while you were counting these moves? And most of the people say, no, we didn't see that, even though it was the right, it stayed right in front of them. It was stared right at them and passed right in front of them while they were counting on the passes, right? So that demonstrates our inattentional blindness, or at least temporarily bounded awareness. So other examples of inattentional blindness are an airplane pilot failing to notice another plane on the runway as he's focused on his controls, right? So like collision can happen where it's least likely to happen. Or a driver on their cell phone is failing to notice another car in front of them. Not noticing something that your spouse told you while you were paying attention to something else, but it's just, I guess, the result of the fact that we are not multi-track minded people. We're all single track minded people, but some of us can switch from one track to another quickly, and some can't. And while you're on another track, then you won't notice something. So heuristics is the buzzword of chapter 1. You'll read about it. Those are rules of thumb that, or our intuitive judgments, our educated guesses, something that actually also works in ways that makes us stereotype people, profile people, because it makes it also makes us draw conclusions quickly. So you're looking to hire a marketing MBA graduate for your company. You decide to limit your search to MBAs from top 6 schools. So that's the example. Why? Because it's good enough. You don't have to review all 100 schools from which you're drawing resumes, and it will give you a good choice. So it helps you make a choice. Another example of a rule of thumb in savings, suppose you decide, well, you save 10% of your income, no matter whether your income is high or low. It helps you avoid making all those complicated calculations in your mind of how much I should save this month or another month. So just a rule of thumb. Why not, right? So maybe not the most efficient choice that like traditional economics would suggest for us, but here you go, it works. Whatever works. And you will read about other heuristics, general types, 4 types of heuristics. The various, those are different shortcuts that trap our minds in certain solutions, even though for some situations, individual solutions would work better, not just rule of thumb solutions. So they lead to biased decisions. They may lead to good decisions too, but there's situations when our critical thinking should be applied to our own ways of thinking, and we should criticize ourselves a little bit. Okay, so availability heuristics is associating probability of seeing an event with how easy they are recalled. Okay, my favorite questions here is, so do you think there are more homicides or suicides in the United States? Of course, we hear about homicides a lot, but if you look at the crime statistics, there are more suicides. Representativeness heuristics, those are reliance on stereotypes. We judge people according to the extent to which they match up with a particular stereotype. or we estimate the likelihood of an event by comparing it to an existing prototype in our mind, right? So we might think that, let's say, a good-looking female is a better waitress. It may or may not be that may be true at all. Or we might, okay, the way stereotype works, we might think, oh, all Asians are good at what, computers or math, right? Even though we think back, we'll think, oh, but don't I know somebody who's Asian but also is an artist? Oh, we do. So not all Asians, but some, just probably as many as people of other ethnicities. Like I meet that person with a laid back attitude and long hair, and I assume they're Californians. Yes, maybe. Or rude people, right? They're New Yorkers, I guess. I bet. So confirmation heuristics. So we'll look for evidence that confirms our intuition rather than evidence that refutes it. So that's confirmation bias that you'll read about. So we interpret information as supporting our current beliefs, right? So reading about, let's say, vitamins, right? Oh, those vitamins are worthless. I always knew that, right? Every time you say to yourself, I always knew that, that's probably confirmation bias working. If somebody who believes in vitamins, they'll be reading the same article and thinking, oh, but so there is a study that shows that vitamin D is really good for you. So there is a study that shows that vitamin C is really good for you. Okay, so affect heuristics means like you're under effect of emotions, affected by emotions. So it guides our decision making, and we'll read more about it as we go along. That sunny weather, for example, makes people feel optimistic, and the stock prices tend to increase. Interestingly enough, bounded rationality constrained by various environmental factors. So what that shows is that people do not quite look for optimal decisions, that they choose for decisions that are good enough. So people don't optimize, but rather satisfy. So, okay, well, this box of cereal is just as fine. It's a good substitute, right? I'm not searching for it anymore. I'm not going to another store and for like a better priced milk, right? So this was good enough. And I will stop at it. So while searching for apartments, this was good enough. I'll take it. Sometimes there's even irrational ignorance to not learn new information because acquiring information is costly. It takes time, right? Our time has an opportunity cost. There's cost to reading, 10 more pages of the book. You could have been doing something else. So rational ignorance in this case is your choice to not acquire some more information. Applies to elections sometimes when people don't want to know about a new candidate because it just takes more time of time away from other activities. Okay, so there are videos on change blindness that are included into the resources for this for the first module, and you can look at them in your spare time. So this is the end of this short presentation. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
This is a great start. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so